Now there will be people, when this video reaches wider audience, there will be people out there who will ask, what is the purpose of revisiting this history? Okay, because all along this series I have been mentioning that there is no clear-cut evidence for anything regarding the ancient history of Bharat that was taught to us, at least what was taught to us in schools. All right, there is no conclusive evidence. It's all hypotheses, postulates, and it's all about which theory is subscribed to by maximum number of scholars. Okay, and you'll see that there is increasing concentration of European and white scholars who have postulated theories about the Aryan homeland being situated in their part of the world. Okay, and by now you must have realized why exactly was that done. All right, but that is besides the point. Why exactly am I doing this? Because since I was born on this holy land, I've taken nourishment from this holy land. It is my duty to return the favor, okay, to work towards the benefit and upliftment of this civilization and her citizens, okay, and that should be yours too. If you have taken birth in this holy land of Bharat, it is, impressed upon you to do something for the upliftment and the benefit of this civilization. Okay. So yes, that is the reason why I am revisiting this history again. I am exploring history from the layperson's and commoner's perspective. I am simply just raising questions, okay, that largely go unanswered in our schools, because even our schools, rather I'll say most of the schools these days, especially the ones that claim to be international schools, are largely propaganda machineries for the West. Okay, they will teach you world wars, they will teach you French Revolution, Russian Revolution, and whatnot. Now, agreed, these things are important. I'm not saying these things are not important, but these subjects, okay, or these events should not be of primary importance for a student who wishes to study history. Okay, you must focus more on our native indigenous literature, that is the Rig Samhita and all those things. All right, so on that note, we are going to start off this video by the literature, the literary value inside the Rig Samhita. Okay, there are this starts from page number 344. This is, I guess, let me check. Okay, this is chapter number, if this is 17, this is chapter number 16. Okay, we have already spoken about the language. Okay, there are significant and considerable variations between even the mandalas in the same Rig Samhita, meaning there was also some evolution and changes that were going on while the hymns were being noted down and manufactured. Okay, if you would like to learn more, I would recommend you watch the previous video in this series. Alright, so today we are going to focus on literature. We have already covered this in many of our videos previously, that most of the things that are written in the Rig Samhita are largely hymns. Okay, hymns as in chanting. Chanting, they were done. Now we don't exactly know what was the specific purpose of chanting these hymns. Some of the hymns are in a manner that suggest that these things were done for worship. There are some hymns that are evidently for the sacrifices, whereas there are other hymns just simply for literary purpose. Okay, so let's see how many can we cover in this video. R.C. Majumdar has made efforts to include hymns in this chapter. All these hymns are given in translated versions. The Sanskrit versions have not been mentioned in this book. So if you are thinking of buying this book, you'll only get the translated versions, not the original Sanskrit ones. Okay, so here it goes. In page number 344, okay, the section on literature starts. Herein he mentions hymns in pure praise of the deity without any prayer, as for instance the Indra hymn bearing unmistakable characteristics of a popular ballad. Okay, this is a English translation of the original Sanskrit one. The heroic deeds of Indra shall I proclaim, the deeds that the thunder wielder performed first. He slew the dragon, freed the waters, slit the bowels of the hills. Okay, so this in a way is singing praises about the entity or the deity that is Indra. Okay, thunder wielder performed first. Thunder wielder meaning the people or the Aryans who lived during the age of Rig Samhita, they had been observing rains for a while. Okay, and since they had this leisure time, they had these epiphanies and ideas about somebody residing over the sky and wielding the thunder because it looked like a weapon. Okay, even to this very day, Indra is worshipped as the rain god. All right. He slew the dragon, freed the waters. Okay, somebody who rescues peoples from their miseries. That is what this hymn suggests who Indra exactly was. Why did he slew the dragon? To free the waters. Okay, as an act of benevolence towards the people. And hence people are singing hymns in their praise. Okay, so far we have not come across any hymn that acts as a prayer, as in somebody, considering something as a superpower and chanting those hymns as a means of prayer. No, these are simply praises. They are praising something that they cannot see and that they cannot comprehend. All they can do is simply put them into words. He slew the dragon resting on the hill. Vashta had forged for him the shining thunder. He slew the dragon resting on the hill. Swashta had forged for him the shining thunder, and the waters springing forth rushed towards the ocean like cows iowing at the sight of their calves. Okay, even the mention of cows, we have already discussed this in our previous videos. Cows were the center of economy. When there was transition from hunter-gatherers to people who now aspired to become a civilized community, they needed to settle down at one place. So they needed a steady source of nourishment, an infallible source of nourishment. That was what cow was for them. Her dairy products were something that they could rely upon when, so since they were relying upon her dairy products, then they need not go and roam about in forests to hunt for meat. Another reason could be now that they had realized that they could sit down in one place and still have a sustainable source of nourishment. They did not go out there in forests, which was another reason for death. So now they had grown fond of having leisurely time and not risk their lives for a pound of meat. All right, so cow was the center of the economy, and hence you'll find the mention of cow in most of the hymns of the Rig Samhita. Okay, last one. Okay, there are multiple paragraphs, but I've chosen the select few that would get the message across. The next one specifically mentions the name of Indra. Indra is the monarch of all that move and rest. Okay, the thunder wielder is monarch of tame and horned animals. He indeed is ruler of all peoples. Like a felly round the spokes of a wheel, he protects all. All right. Now here you can see somebody, if you're reading this purely from a literary point of view, you can sit down and analyze and say that, oh, if here he is heaping praises on somebody and he's saying that he's a thunder wielder monarch. Okay, he has not been given the position of a god. He has given the position of a monarch, meaning a king who is ruling over them. Okay, and he indeed is the ruler of all peoples. It specifically and explicitly mentions that Indra is the ruler of all peoples. Okay, so here is no room for some doubt. There is no doubt. It's a well established fact that Indra is signified as the ruler of the Aryans. Okay, like a fellow round the spokes of a wheel, he protects all. Now, since he is the ruler, his primary duty is to protect all. Okay, let's see. Next up is about food. Okay, let's read a few hymns that say something about food and everything else. This is again an English translation. Hunger was certainly not meant as means of death by the gods, for also him who has eaten his fill, death befalls in various forms. The wealth of the liberal is never exhausted, but the stingy person never finds a friend. Okay? Hunger was certainly not meant as means of death by the gods. Okay, somebody like you'll see in the later times, especially during the dawn of these ideas of Jainism, increasing amount of stress has been laid down on self mortification, meaning you endure a lot of hardships to attain the ultimate stage, and more than often those hardships come by starving yourself. Okay, but here in the Rig Samhita it says hunger was certainly not meant as a means of death by the gods, for also him who has eaten his fill, death befalls in various forms. Okay, because the rationale that is put forward in the Rig Samhita for whoever who wrote it, he says, for those of you who have eaten their part, they can also die. Okay, so hunger wasn't a means to death. The wealth of the liberal is never exhausted, but the stingy person never finds a friend. So you'll see even some seeds of morality over here as well. Okay, you'll the surviving real life manifestations in the contemporary world. You will see that largely enough. I'm not talking about the elite rich such as Ambani, Adani, and all those people. Even at your local level, okay, even at your community level, people who are rich, okay, very often they would also do a lot of philanthropy in the form of donating money towards certain charities, giving away free biscuits to domestic animals, rearing domestic animals, adopting things such as schools and whatnot. Okay, so this sentiment of philanthropy finds its source in this uh, hymn of the Rig Samhita that was written 3 millennia ago, that is 3000 years ago. That is again a very conservative estimate. That was written down 3000 years ago. We don't know how many years prior to it was it actually practiced. All right. So here is the seed of that. The wealth of liberal is never exhausted. If you are liberal and if you believe in this sentiment of giving away, okay, then whatever it is that you are giving away will never be exhausted from your possession. That is what the Rig Samhita mentions. Okay, so you'll see these even to this very day, after centuries and centuries and even millennia. Okay, these sentiments to this very day exist, right, amongst the people. Whenever you have been blessed with opulence, you share it with others. He who, though possessing food, to the broken and begging destitute, approaching him, refuses a morsel and hardens his heart against him, even though he had served him before, he too likewise never finds a friend. If somebody comes at your doorstep seeking help in whatever form, in the form of nourishment, in the form of money, whatever else, if somebody walks to your doorsteps requesting you for help, and if you deny them that help, you will never find a true friend. Okay, but here it's not to be taken literally, it is supposed to be taken metaphorically, meaning you'll not find somebody who is real, who is not a real friend of yours. Okay, to this very day you'll see these manifestations largely in the rural areas, because the urbans are going down this path of wokery, that is, for the lack of a better word, bullshit that has been imported from United States. But more about it in some other video. Right now you'll see that majority of these traditions and these manifestations in real life of the Rig Samhita, they exist in rural areas. Okay, to this very day you'll see that the people in rural areas, if somebody goes to somebody's doorstep asking for food or whatever, largely people will not deny, as long as they are capable of it. Okay, they will not deny help. So these things exist. Okay, There are certain goddesses have also been mentioned in the Rig Samhita. One of them is Usha. Okay, Usha is heaven's daughter, it is said. Perhaps the oldest and certainly the most beautiful. They have something of lyrical beauty and love of nature. Okay, some other hymns that have been dedicated to Ushas were heaven's daughters. Okay, now there are some hymns that are also been dedicated to them as well. Okay, they have something of lyric beauty and love of nature, and one cannot help understanding that they were inspired by the sight of sunrise and snow-clad peaks of the Himalayas. Obviously, when you're writing something that has a lyrical beauty, the inspiration must have come, at least some degree of inspiration must have come from the outside scenery or the visuals that are in front of you. Okay, now here it has been understood that this lyrical beauty would have some degree of motivation coming from the geography or the locality in which they were sat when they composed these hymns. Okay, so let's read a few hymns that talk about the geographical beauty. Okay, light us up with happiness, O Ushas, daughter of heaven, with great lustre, O radiant one, with wealth, O bountiful goddess. Okay, so herein is even the idea of, like, largely it is said that the ruggedness or I would say ruggedness and ruthlessness is something that has been associated historically and culturally and evolutionarily with the masculine side of the human existence, whereas something that is beautiful, something that is graceful, something that is pretty has been associated with the feminine side of human existence. All right, now here they are dedicating beauty to a goddess. Okay, they specifically mention daughter of heaven. Okay, so obviously they acknowledged the duality in the existence of nature, meaning if everything that we are surrounded by has come into existence, it has come into existence by the unison of both the dimensions of human existence, the masculine dimension and the feminine dimension. Okay, for something to take birth, there has to have been a unison between these two. Okay, and hence you see we are the only surviving civilization on earth that worships, the divine and the feminine divine in the human existence. Okay, the monotheistic traditions, they don't worship the goddesses, specifically Islam. Okay, the treatment of women in Islam is horrible. Okay, so they do not worship women. Okay, so that is again a discussion for some another video, but here to draw, why am I saying this? Because this is something that has been clubbed together in the form of this fake narrative of all religions are same. No, all religions are not same. All religions do not have 3 millennia old hymns dedicated to goddesses. Okay, like a fair maiden comes Usha's, gladdening all. She comes awakening four-footed beasts and makes the birds rise into the air. Okay, O Ushas, win them the prize that is admired among human folk. With that, hasten to the sacrifices of your worshippers, the sacrifices who are chanting your praises. Okay, again, you'll have to see over here that when we spoke about the hymns that were dedicated to Indra, that were more in the tone of praise. Here they are more in the tone of worship. They specifically mention goddess. Okay. Here, oh, with great lustre, O radiant one, with wealth, O bountiful goddess. All right. There is no suggestion as yet of a belief in the existence of supreme justice from which flow all punishment and reward. Okay. Existence of supreme justice. In the hymns to Varuna, however, this sentiment is already in the horizon. Okay, let's hear. Varuna was a god that was watching over the functioning of the cosmic order. Okay, cosmic order is nothing but the way we call what we call as dharma, something that has been put into motion, and it is our duty to make sure that that motion is sustainable and it continues the way it should or the way it must. Whenever there has been any blockage in this motion, okay, incarnations of Vishnu have taken birth. So this cosmic order that we call dharma, that is a motion that has been set, events that have been set into motion must not be disturbed. All right. Now, what will happen if these things are disturbed? Okay, people will say that the stories of the incarnation of Vishnu, that is what it is, just stories. You cannot assign any historical significance to it. Okay, but let's see what the Rig Samhita had to say. Okay, now Varuna is a god. Okay, in current definition, to make you understand, let's take him to be a god. Okay, he is a person who watches over this, cosmic order. He's watching over if the cosmic order is going on the way it should. Okay, let's hear the hymns that were dedicated to him. May this hymn addressed to Aditi's son, who is wise and self-supreme, excel in all the existing hymns in greatness. The God whom it is exceedingly pleasant to worship, of that affluent Varuna do I beg glorious fame. Aditi's son unleashed them, that is the rivers, and started them on various paths. The rivers course along in obedience to Varuna's ordinance. Never released are they, nor ever tired. Like the birds, they swiftly fly in never-ending course. Okay, here this hymn says, remember this was written down 3000 years ago, but we don't exactly know how many centuries or millennia prior to this these things were orally manufactured and were carried on for centuries as an oral tradition. Okay, so here they are saying it is only due to Varuna's watchful presence that the rivers were brought down and they are functioning the way they are. Okay, the birds are flying the way they are in a never ending course. Okay, so this order, this cosmic order, was started into motion by whom? That is Varuna. Okay, loosen the bond of sin like a girdle, O Varuna. We shall fully conform to the rule of equity you have ordained. Okay, he has said that this order must not be bothered. This order should not be messed around with. Okay. May not the thread snap while I'm still weaving my prayer song. May not the measuring rod break out of season. Avert terror from me, O Varuna. Be kind to me as a righteous ruler. Okay, here, although they are worshipping, but they are being scareful. They are being fearful of this God. So you must know how important must have been for them to stick to this cosmic order. Because when they are praying or when they are worshipping to this deity, the tone in which they are worshipping is fearful. Okay, so it is safer to assume, or if you assume, then you are bound to err on the side of caution that Varuna indeed was the god who started the cosmic order. Okay, if he was not exactly started, okay, he was the one who provided the push that started this motion. Okay, so here he is saying that even if I err, even if there is some mistake by me, please forgive me. Do not, cast terror on me. So he was a fearful deity. Do not strike us, Varuna, with the weapons which, in your search, O Asura, destroy those who commit sin. May we not have to bid adieu to light. Here they are praying that those who commit sin, and by sin, those who break this cosmic order, those who disturb this cosmic order, should be punished. Okay? By Varuna himself. May we not have to bid adieu to light. They're saying if we disturb this cosmic order, Varuna has the power to snatch away the light, meaning The only source of light on this earth is natural source of light, at least on this earth, is sun. So if somebody disturbs the cosmic order, they would inevitably invite the wrath of Varuna, and Varuna would have the power to snatch away the sunlight. Okay, although these things might sound metaphorical, but you cannot say that this is absolute fiction. There has to be some degree of genuineness over here. Okay, and keep in mind, these things have been written down, like if you take the conservative estimate, these were written down 3 millennia ago, but they may have been practiced at least 5 millennia ago, that is 5,000 years ago. Okay, absence of evil is not what they pray for most. Their supreme desire is to triumph over poverty and resistance. So they are not praying that there should not be evil amongst the populace or in the world. What does this say? Does this say that they were realistic? They accepted that there is no possibility or there is no reality where there is absence of evil. Okay? If the world exists, that means there is good and then there is evil. You cannot have a world with absolute peace and zero evil. That is strictly not possible, and that is something that the Aryans of the Rig Samhita acknowledged and recognized 3,000 years ago. Okay, they were deeply impressed by the violence of natural phenomena like the thunder, lightning, and everything else. So they were deeply impressed by it. Okay. Now here, hymns of this type are unique in world literature, for nowhere else can the deification of natural phenomena be clearly perceived. In the hymns of the Rig Samhita, it is pretty much clear that they were worshipping the natural phenomena. Okay, nowhere in the world, nowhere in the ancient literature of the world, it is pretty much clear that they worship the natural phenomena. Okay, but that does not mean people will say that since they were only worshipping natural phenomena, this is somehow the source of this narrative that the Aryan race that started in Bharat is a pacifist race. Okay, they were never a martial race. Okay, simply just because all they were doing was worshipping nature. That's not the point. Let's read some further hymns. Okay. This is another English translation of that hymn. It is given on page number 348 in this book. It says, "Like a thunder cloud becomes his face when the mailed warrior plunges into the thick of battle. Be victorious without being injured in body. May the strength of the armor protect you. By the bow we'll win the cattle. By the bow the battle. By the bow shall we win the mighty struggles. The bow destroys the enemy. By the bow shall we conquer the regions." Okay, so let's slow down for a bit and deconstruct these hymns. Okay, like the thunder cloud become his face. Thunder cloud again. This is, they are alluding to the spirit and the sentiments of Indra, because Indra is proclaimed to be the warlord or the war god. He is the one who protects the people. He is the one who protects the Aryans. Okay. So when the mailed warrior plunges into the thick of the battle, so when the warrior, he plunges into the thick of the battle, be victorious without being injured in body. They are exhorting the warrior. By the way, it is curiously enough, the gender, or was it a male, was it a female warrior, it's not mentioned in the hymns. So I'll leave it to your better judgment. I'm not making any tall claims over here, but it's not gender specific. They have not mentioned it. Okay. Be victorious without being injured in body. May the strength of the armor protect you. Okay. So if these are not manifestations of the martial spirit, what is? Okay. By the bow will win the battle. Bow, they are talking about bow and arrow. So 5,000 years ago, bow and arrow were the weapons of the Aryans who fought over there. Keep in mind, we have already established that King Rama and Krishna, both of them were the scions of Aryanhood. Both of them spread the message of Aryanhood far wide in this geography of Bharat. Okay, so the bow and arrow as a weapon existed on this piece of geography, okay, more than 5,000 years ago. All right. So by the bow will win the cattle again. So if the first thing that is on their mind, the first aspiration for them to wage a war is to win cattle, what does that say about, the value of cattle or the type of economy in which they were living? Like I've already mentioned before, they were living in a cow economy, meaning now that they had settled down or they were planning on settling down, they needed a sustainable supply of nourishment, and the dairy products from mother cow is something that was a sustainable source of nourishment. All they could do was, now they did not go out in forest and risk their lives for meat. They could stay at one place. Only once in a while they could go and hunt and then come back and spend the rest of the week for their leisurely pursuits such as composing hymns. Okay, so by the bow they're talking about the bow destroys the enemy. As if to whisper, the string nears the ear, holding in embrace its dear friend, the bow. Stretched on the bow, it lisps like a girl, the string that helps on to victory. Okay. The Bharat army. This is not a hymn. This is a paragraph. The Bharat army succeeded in crossing rivers Vipas and Sutudri only when Vishwamitra, by his eloquence, persuaded them to lower their level. All right. Again, so the importance of priests was perpetual during the Aryan ages. This is again another hymn, that merry song by Sisu Angiras, with the refrain, "Flow, O Soma, for Indra's sake." All right, this is again an English translation. Diverse indeed are our aims, different are the tasks of men. The builder seeks for cracks, leeches for the sick, and priests are greedy for sacrifices. With seasoned timber of ancient trees and the feathers of birds, the goldsmith seeks those who possess gold, ready with his furnaces and precious gems. A bard I am, my father a leech, and my mother is a grinder of corn. Diverse in means, but all wishing wealth, equally we strive for cattle. Now let's again slow down and deconstruct these things. Now, diverse are our aims. Now, this thing was written down 3000 years ago, but it had been in practice, and it was a common, not exactly common knowledge, but it was an exclusive knowledge to some of the people, okay, prior to being written down. So even prior to being written down, there would have been centuries of trial and error, because these verses were perfected after a lot of chanting, and they were carried on for generations through oral tradition. So we don't exactly know when exactly did these hymns were originally composed. All we know is they were written down 3000 years ago. Okay. So here, when they were written down, they're talking about diverse indeed are our aims. So they're talking about different vocations, meaning there were different jobs that the people were indulged in. Okay. What were those jobs? Builder seeks for cracks, as in somebody who is a builder, who is into the construction business. Remember, this is 3000 years ago. They're talking about somebody who is in a construction business. They only seek cracks in others' homes so they could earn more. Okay. Next is leeches for the sick. Okay. Leeches are those insects. This could also have been the metaphor. Leeches are those insects that act as parasites on other hosts. Okay. And priests are greedy for sacrifices. Why? Because priests were the ones who officiated at the sacrifices. There are also indications that they specifically used to come up with hymns. They used to manufacture hymns. Keep in mind, Sanskrit was used as a raw material to manufacture hymns. Okay. I'm sorry to have to put it that way, but that is, I would say, that was one of the, it's just one of the things. Okay. With seasoned timber of ancient trees and feathers of birds, the goldsmith seeks those who possess gold. Okay. So they also knew the art of, making gold ornaments 3000 years ago. But we are taught in school that there are no evidences of gold in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilization. Or there are very rare traces of gold in Mohenjo-daro and Harappa civilization. But here in one of the hymns of Rig Veda, they say that the goldsmith seeks those who possess gold. Okay, so how do you justify this? How do you reconcile it with the facts that are being taught in the name of history in our school? Okay, so if Rig Samhita 3000 years ago they are saying that the goldsmiths only seek gold, how many years prior to that would goldsmith have existed? And even how many years prior to that would they have perfected the art of goldsmithery by perfected the art by trial and error? We don't exactly know, but these professions existed. Okay. As a bard, I am my father a leech and my mother a grinder of corn. Okay. So in a specific family as well, there were people who would be indulged in different locations, but all their aims, be it a goldsmith, be it a priest, be it whoever, goldsmith, carpenters, be it whatever, all their aims were equally we strive for cattle. All they wanted was cattle. So cow was the currency. Why? Because she would provide a sustainable source of nourishment, so they would have time for other leisurely pursuits. They saw cow as a means of escaping this, hunter-gathererhood. Meaning they did not want to simply just roam around in forest and keep hunting for animals, eat and again continue hunting. That existence had become mundane and monotonous to them. They wanted to settle down at one place and engage and indulge in leisurely pursuits. For that they needed a sustainable source of nourishment, and that is what cow provided. And the mere fact that everybody was striving for more and more cattle, that itself should speak to you about what was the importance of cow during that time. Okay. Next is on page number 350. R.C. Majumdar writes, Dasa princes like Sambara, Duni, Chumuri, Pipru, and Virchin have been actually mentioned by the Rig Samhita poets, but it is significant that as a rule, Indra himself has been made to combat them on his own initiative and not in course of rendering merely routine assistance to Aryan chiefs. For it shows that even in the heyday of Rigvedic culture, there was no longer a living memory of the first encounters with the aboriginal races. So let's assume, I've also done this in many of my previous videos, but since R.C. Majumdar has again written this in his book, we will again revisit that concept. Okay, if indeed we assume that this theory of the West about Aryans coming from outside and not being natives of this motherland or the holy land of Bharat, then why exactly they do not mention anything about foreigner people? Okay, imagine a group of people or a community coming from outside and settling down in the current day areas of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Okay, wouldn't they have written any hymn whatsoever? Even a couplet, like 2 lines about encountering a race that was native to Bharat. If you are assuming that they came from outside, that they were not native to geography of Bharat, if you assume that they came from outside, wouldn't they write something about that in Rig Samhita? Forget about that. Wouldn't they write something about their journey coming from over there? Forget that. Wouldn't they write something about their remembrances of recalling their own native land if indeed they came from outside? These are the questions that still remain unanswered. Okay, only if you want to believe in this theory of the West that Aryans came from outside. Okay. The hymns, though of no literary value, are of immense importance for the history of the Aryan religion. They prove conclusively that also in the oldest period, as at later epochs, ritual had never been fully standardized. So, okay, it was still in this procedure of being perfected. Okay, rituals were never perfect. The very fact that there is variance in Sanskrit language, even in different chapters of the Rig Samhita, it should speak volumes about continuous refinement going on. Okay. Burial was the earlier custom. It is significant that the deceased, if a man still holds a bow in his hand, which the priest takes away from him at the time of burial with the words. Okay, so the ancient uh, the ancient tradition of disposing of the dead was to bury them. Okay, the bow I take from the hand of the deceased for our power and glory and strength. Even there, where you lie, may we as good heroes repulse all the attacks of the foes. The martial spirit of the Aryans find truest expression in this verse. Okay, whenever somebody used to die, his bow, his weapon used to be placed next to him. Okay, and right before completely burying the body, the priest would take that bow away and chant this. Okay, even there where you lie, may we as good heroes repulse all the attacks of the foes. Okay, so they're talking about the martial spirit over here. They're talking about in whichever world you might be. Okay, this also again is the inception of the idea of transmigration of soul. Okay, the cycle of birth and rebirth. Keep in mind, all of this was, ongoing evolution, ongoing refinement. Okay, so here if he's saying wherever you may lie, okay, so here in a way he is conceding to the idea that human beings, they exists like this. I mean, spirit is different from the body. Okay, so it's only the body that has expired, but the spirit has come out of it and transmigrated to some other world. Otherwise, why would that priest chant this while taking away the bow from him? If he's saying that even there where you lie, may we as good heroes repulse all the attacks of the foes. So he's even, we don't know whether was it a conscious or an unconscious, but there is an acceptance of the fact that the spirit after death goes to some other world. Okay. Twice in the Rig Samhita, man has been called Mrityu Bandhu regarding death as a relation. The Rig Samhita, the Rig Samhita Aryans were passionately fond of life, but they were not afraid of death. Okay, so twice in the Rig Samhita it is said that the person and death, they were called Mrityu Bandhu. Death is your friend. That is how it has been perceived. That is how the Aryans perceived death. Okay. Even at the moment of death, the thought supreme in their minds is that of war. Okay, so this is what we say when we mean about the Kshatriya spirit. Okay, up until so far, it has nowhere been mentioned that the Kshatriya spirit was the exclusive monopoly of so and so Varna. It has not come out. Okay, regardless of the surname that you carry next to your name. Okay, there is a Kshatriya spirit within you. Next is, that's how this chapter ends. Okay, now we move on to the next chapter, that is political and legal institutions. So the political and legal institutions, as a general rule, monarchy was a system of government. Okay, there exists a word Rajan, meaning a king. That it exists as a word in the Rig Samhita. There were kings. Obviously, when there is a king, there would be some groups, some assemblies that would be assigned to assist him in the day-to-day discharge of his duties as a king. Okay, keep in mind, we are coming from this understanding that there is a cosmic order. Okay, and all you are supposed to do, that this cosmic order is a living entity in itself. Okay, it is a cyclical thing. It will keep on moving around. You are only just simply there to ensure, okay, that there are no impediments in those cyclic movements of the cosmic order. That is the sole duty of human beings. Okay, that cyclic order will keep on moving, will keep on functioning in its own way. Okay, the sole and exclusive purpose of the human beings is to ensure that there are no impediments and there are no cogs in that machinery. Okay, Mm, tribe as a political unit being under a single ruler, yes. Obviously, when there were, so now that there were tribes, each tribe had cattle to sustain itself, but now they would fight war because they had aspirations of, touching glory. They had aspirations of growing on a large scale. So, in order for them to grow on a large scale, what was their currency? Cows. What would they do for cows? They will wage wars. Okay. So, there will be a single tribe. Okay, a king who goes by the name of Rajan, he would be chosen. Okay, and that king would wage war on another tribe for the sake of cattle. Why? Because cattle was the currency of the Aryans of those times. Kingdoms were small in extent, units of a single tribe. Okay, still there were philosophers who were employed by the kings, who would guide them, who would assist them in the day-to-day statecraft. Okay, Sabha and Samiti. Since, however, Sabha was used for the game of dice, it is clear that even non-political business could be transacted at the hall or by the people who constituted the Sabha. That it was a gathering of the elect, that is of the Brahmanas and the rich patrons, when it was convened for administrative purposes, is clear from the term convened of, it is clear from the term Sabhaya, worthy of the assembly. Okay, so yeah, there were people who were, I would say what exactly? There were people who were thinkers and philosophers. Those are the people who populated these sabhas and samitis, and those are the people who guided the Rajan or the king. Okay. Next up, there is this English translation of the hymn that is given over here. The place is common, common the assembly, common the mind, so be their thoughts unified. This is the exact definition of political unity. Your exact thoughts related to the politics of this country, related to the politics of the Rashtra must align. The moment you start thinking differently, okay, you divorce yourself from the united politic of the nation. That is how a nation functions. There has to be commonality in thoughts. There has to be a commonality in place. There has to be a commonality in the mind, and with that, the result should be there has to be commonality in thoughts. Okay, all your thoughts must align. Now, I'm not, questioning this idea of freedom of expression. Okay, that you are allowed to think in the way you like, but the contours, the boundaries must be decided. There cannot be an absolute idea of freedom of expression. There cannot be an absolute idea of, freedom of expression. Why? Because then you'll start thinking something else entirely. And now, in this increasing age of digitization, we don't exactly know what to think, because we are flooded with so much of information that we end up buying into either of the narrative that is usually usually put out by a media house who has its own political proclivities. Okay. The king was preeminently a warlord. This is on page number 358. The king was preeminently the warlord. The king and his nobles fought from chariots and the common people on foot. Okay. So imagine a tribe. Okay. Imagine a tribe that lives together. Okay. Goldsmiths, priests, everyone. Okay, farmers, priests, goldsmith, for whatever vocation you have, there's a tribe that is existing on a piece of land with a designated amount of cattle. Okay, now let's say there is a king from a neighboring tribe who is challenging you. So what would be the approach of the tribe that is being challenged? How would they fight? Okay, the learned men, the priests, would guide the king, but still they would go down in the battlefield. The king And the people who were occupying positions of power, they would also go down on the field, but they would have the luxury of fighting from a chariot. Okay, the remaining population who were engaged in different vocations such as goldsmiths and farmers and whatnot, even they will go and fight that tribe. Okay, they would act as an infantry. They would not have the luxury of fighting from chariots. So the entire tribe would walk down in the battlefield and fight. Okay, so that is how the battles were conducted in the age of the Rig Samhita by the Aryans. The entire populace would go down to the battlefield to fight, because since they were fighting, it were inter-tribe struggles. So whoever survived would take over the cattle of the defeated tribe, and then they'll again start existing as a larger geography. And then if again that larger geography is challenged by some other tribe, the entire tribe would fight. Okay, so there were no specific, I would say, no specific class or community of people had exclusive monopoly over the kshatra. Okay, the principal weapon was bow and arrow, meaning the bow and arrow was the principal. Horse riding was known. This is also used as one of the justifications that are given by the West, that the native people in the geography of Bharat, they did not have the knowledge of horse. And usually when you think about horse, the thought of a warrior riding a horse with a sword, that is the picture that comes to your mind. But these Rigvedic Aryans, they already had knowledge of horse riding. Even there is a place called Surkotada. It is located in Gujarat somewhere. I'm not able to recall right now, but there remains of horses have been recovered, and it is a Harappa civilization site. Okay, so yeah, that makes you want to wonder, why were we lied to? A body of foot soldiers marched along with the charioteers, the two together constituting the army. 4 is accepted. Then besides ordinary wars of defense and conquests, raids into neighboring territory were frequent, normal for winning booty, which the king shared with the people. So it was a group effort. Okay, there wasn't exactly any boundaries between this is the army and this is the workforce and this is so. There was no such boundary. It was all elastic. When wars approached the frontiers, the entire populace of the tribe, at least the combatant populate of the tribe, were standing in the battlefield. It is just that the kings and his near and dear ones had the luxury of fighting from a chariot. These people, they functioned as an infantry, as in foot soldiers. Reference has been made to the hymns breathing a martial spirit. So this speaks volumes about the martial spirit of the Aryans that existed. Okay. All this is, yep. So there is also descriptions of messengers. There are also descriptions of spies. So this, in a way, should tell you a lot about the existence of the state and administrative machinery, because there were spies, there were messengers, there were people who were working in the employment to do various tasks. Okay, so there were some administrative structures as well. Okay, law and legal institutions. Okay, now this should come as something that is very interesting to you. Is the regular word for law and custom in the Rig Samhita is dharman. So a word for law is dharma. Now what are we taught in our popular discourse? Dharma means religion. No, dharma means law. Theft, burglary, highway robbery and cheating are among the crimes recorded, cattle lifting at night being a frequent one. Okay, yes. So cattle lifting, so all these things have been mentioned 3000 years ago, and we don't exactly know how many years prior to them these practices existed. Alright, that's all for this episode. I will see you guys in the next episode with religion and the philosophical aspects of the Aryans during the age of Rig Samhita. Thank you for watching.